other smart assemblies might be kind of new. So you know, we'll kind of go, you know, from the ground up. Like I said, we're going to start with 2015, and at the end, we'll show you a little sneak preview of some of the new things we're doing with attachment points in 2016, and that's going to be pretty cool. So just a quick overview of what attachments do. The attachment points give you ability to create these mating snap points between parts for quick assembly. So just a real simple example. If I've got my cylinder selected, I go under Tools and I click Attachment Points. Now you do have to have something selected to start the attachment point command. And I'm going to just pick the center top of this, and it's going to give me an attachment point there that's highlighted yellow. And you'll see the little hand icon next to it. While that's there, I can right-click on that and go to Set Name. Now, the concept with the naming convention of an attachment point is that you want to match names between different parts. So if I want this cylinder to mate to this block, I'm going to give it the same name on the attachment points for each part. And then you have to have a postfix to tell it what kind of a attachment point it is. Now the most basic one is neutral, so you just do a name underscore neutral. So I'm just going to do 1_n for neutral. And you can also do things like male and female. I can do an _f or an _m, and then an m will mate with an f, you know, and vice versa, so that you can, you know, determine, you know, which end is up, you know, if you have mating connectors, things like that. I like the neutral format just because it's simple and easy. I can come in and create attachment points anywhere I want, and you know, put them with the neutral format. Now again, this one's going to be also a 1_n, and so basically any 1_n will attach to any other 1_n, and they attach from a drag and drop from a catalog. So I'm going to create the new catalog and drop my cylinder into the catalog, and when I drag it anywhere on the block, it'll just pop out and snap. So I've got my snap behavior there, and everything's great. Now at this point, that's the most kind of fundamental level of an attachment point. Well, I guess even simpler than that. If they don't have names and you drag it right on exactly on the attachment point, they will snap together. But you know, that's a little less friendly. Now I can also
hey Kevin, just
go
real
ahead,
quick.
Steve.
Is there a certain situation where it may be better to do a male-female?
Well, yeah, and
neutral?
you know, not very often. I mean, the male-female is there for instance, say I had, and I'll cover that now, but say you had a pipe fitting where, you know, one end of the pipe always inserts in, or one end of the fitting always inserts into one end of the pipe versus the other. That's where you'd maybe have on one end of the fitting would be male, one end of the fitting would be female, and then you can snap together. And I'll show an example of that here. So if I create another attachment point here at the other end of my cylinder, so I can call this 1_male, and then I can always come back and rename these at any time and call that the female end. And again, I can come over here and say this is my male end, and this will be my female end on this side. And then again, I can clear out my catalog. Just delete that, drag that back in, so that, and what I might want to do actually before I do that, make it a little more obvious, is I'll color the different ends here. A little sidebar into Smart Paint for you here. Make that one red so you can get a little differentiation. So I drag that in the catalog and back out, and you see, if you know, wherever I snap, it's going to drop it closest. Now if I drop down towards this end, it's going to mate on the other connector, and again, see, it's red up here because of the male-female issue. It's blue down here because it's snapping, you know, based on the gender of the attachment point, if you will. So you know, there's cases where you can get as complicated as you want with it, but 9 times out of 10, the neutral one's going to work for you just because usually you're mating one part with another, and there's not really an issue there. But that's up to you.
Perfect.
So kind of going back, so that kind of covers the naming conventions, and that's what we want. And the nice thing is it's real easy to come back in and change. If you want to go back to neutral, you can. If you already have your item in the catalog and you don't want to recreate it, just right-click and go Edit Catalog Item. And I can come in here, maybe I want to delete that attachment point, and then I want to change this one back to neutral. So I pop that in there, and then I just hit close. I say yes to save it into the catalog, and now if I drag that out, it'll pop there. And even if you had 2 neutrals, like I'll go back to 2 neutrals, this is another point that is good to bring up. And actually maybe I'll even make a third, because you can have as many attachment points on a part as you want. And then I'll put one here, and I'll also call that 1_m. Now the question is, when I drag out, which one does it snap to? Well, if you left click and drag, it'll just get whatever you're closest to. So if I come in and get near, it's going to grab the one that's closest to. However, if you want to have more control over that, like most things in IronCAD, more controls are right click. So I just right click and drag anywhere on the part, and I get this nice little preview, and I can toggle between whichever one I want and say I want that one, and I just hit OK, and then it's done. So that's just a right click and drag out, and that gives you the pop-up to toggle between them. So that's a handy option, especially if you have a part with a lot of attachment points, and you don't want to have to mouse around. Maybe you have some that are really close together, and that would be more difficult. So that's kind of the covers the naming conventions. Now, one other thing I like to show off is these catalogs are nothing magical. Everybody knows about catalogs. I think we did a piece on catalog, but one thing we may have glossed over is creating groups, and people like groups. Basically, you just right-click, create a group. I believe we can rename this. We'll call this parts, and you can double-click in there. I could put everything I want, in my group. I can click back, go forward. So you can start nesting your smart assemblies, and you might want to say, this is where my smart parts live, and I have all my smart assemblies, and if I could spell, I'd be dangerous, but you guys get the idea. So you can have all your intelligent parts in there, and maybe your standard parts here, and mix and match things like that. So I do like to point that out. And then I think we can just keep that for now. I'm going to delete this item out of here. And we'll start with a new example, because I want to show off parameters, because parameters are a nice way to kind of tie the attachment points. Like say, for instance, you drag and drop a part out and it snaps together, but you also want it at the same time to acquire a certain parameter based on what it's dropped upon. So for an example, I have a shaft here, and I'm about to have a hole in my block. So say my hole is 3/8 of an inch. Oops, 3/8 of an inch. And let's just make it all the way through. So I got this little hole here, but obviously my shaft's not going to fit. So I want to build some parameters into this, because I want to have an intelligent part, an intelligent shaft, and when I drag and drop this cylinder onto this block, not only do I want it positioned precisely, but I also want it to resize to mate the hole. So I'm going to start this by doing some parameters, and this is going to be a little bit of review from the parameters training we did a few weeks ago. But I'm just going to do some quick methods here, and do that. Maybe lock the center point. So my hole's locked in place. Now that smart dimension will give me a parameter, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the cylinder. I'll throw a smart dimension on here, and just give that a dimension to start with, and lock that in place. All right, so now I can go into my parameter table, and for this part, we'll call this the whole part just to make it obvious, and we'll call this guy the shaft. That way we don't get confused. So what I want to do is add a parameter called the hole diameter, or actually hole radius would make more sense in this case. And I'm just going to make that equal to what the radius is. And you remember from like our driving parameters, you have to have something at the part level, and that's what we're going to do here, because the in 2015 the attachment points only work at the part level. In 2016 you'll be able to apply attachment points at the feature level, but that's not implemented quite yet. So we got that set there, and then I go to my shaft, and I want to do the same thing here. Go the shaft radius is 0.75 and make that equivalent, and we're okay. So now we've got our parameters in place, but we need to add our smart attachment points. So we'll grab a regular attachment point and place it there, and we'll set the name. And this time we want to do our 1_n, but then we're going to open parentheses here and do a colon. In this format you might have to watch the video a few times, and we want the shaft radius to equal the hole radius. So that format's pretty straightforward, but remembering this syntax, it's in the help, but you can watch the video a few times before you memorize that. And I'm going to just copy and paste that into another attachment point right at the center of the hole. Set the name here and paste that in, because I want those to be the same. So I'll go back to my catalog here, drag this out, and if I did this right, when I drag this out and get it just approximately, you see my diameter or radius of my shaft made it up with the hole. So that's a way to kind of tie in the parameter table, and you see everything's matched up, the parameter table along with the attachment points. Now we can take it even a step further, and we can get into constraints. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to right click the name again, and I'm going to open another parentheses, and actually I just cheated. I got a little text file with this syntax in it. So basically open another parenthesis, type in constraint colon, and this stands for coincident point, so CNP, and then coax on the z-axis, which is the long segment of the attachment point. So on drop, the shaft is going to be coincident to the point plus coaxial to the axis of the hole, which is exactly what I want. And again, I'm just going to copy all that and also apply it to there.
Now, and Kevin, I think what might be good is at some point show everyone how to find those definitions inside the help system.
Yeah, I'll see if I can dig that up. That's a good test of our help system. Thanks for putting me on the spot there. I'm sure it's there, but we'll, like all help, we'll have to dig a little bit. So now I dragged out my shaft. I dropped it approximately. I get my position. I get my resizing. And now if you look at constraints here, I've got the concentric and the coincident. So now I can do some wacky things like turn the tri-ball on and maybe rotate here, and I'll pull this out here, and everything stays all nice and tight. So if you do want to do constraints, which I know some people like them, some people hate them, but it's available. So there's the syntax there. You can kind of look at it. I'll leave it there for the video's sake. We did the name underscore neutral, open print colon, parameter equals this parameter, close print, open print again, constraint, colon,